Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy, TheMadKaiger, and up here today with another set of reviews upcoming. I've recently been playing through the Gears of War series with my friend through Mixer. If you want to check those videos out, go on Mixer and check them out. I've done Gears of War 1 Ultimate Edition and Gears of War 2, and we started Gears of War 3 last night. And hopefully tonight we're going to be continuing on with Gears of War 3. Now, I have here the limited edition version of Gears of War 1, and today's video, of course, well, it's a bit obvious, is the original Gears of War game. Now, I'm going to be talking about this and the Ultimate Edition, because essentially they are pretty much the same game, except the Ultimate Edition is an updated version of Gears of War 1, with a few new things added, and I'll mention those towards the end of the video. Back in 2000, I believe this was 2006. Back in 2006, the Xbox 360 was treated to the Gears of War game. Now, I remember when I first played this game, I'm going to be completely honest with you. When we got our Xbox 360, we got two games with it. We got this and a football game. And I played this game and I couldn't even get past the first part of the game. I just kept dying. I had no clue what I was doing. I had grown accustomed to playing, PS2 games. And, Gears of War was something new I'd never played before. And it really blew my mind at the time. Now, for those of you who've never heard of Gears of War and have been living under a rock, Gears of War was a new IP from Microsoft and Epic Games. Back when Epic Games made good games, Epic Games, that company that's made Fortnite and made millions of dollars off Fortnite for that kids, we say kids, battle royale game. Very cartoony, very child friendly. They made Gears of War, probably one of the most violent, gruesome, gritty, dark third-person shooters of all time. This game really turned a lot of heads back in the day. And still to this day, people are still amazed by how gruesome these games are. This is on par with Mortal Kombat level violence. The fact of the matter is, one of the weapons in the game is a assault rifle with a chainsaw bayonet. It says it all, right? And you know what? Gears of War was very unique at the time because it had a really unique art style to it. It was very much like a combination of, say, Victorian, steampunk, post-apocalyptic, futuristic, all thrown in together. It had a very unique art style, and I don't know why. What more I can say about it in the art style department. It was just very unique for the time, and obviously in the later games they sort of changed it a little bit, but at the time this game is very dark and very gritty, and it's got this sort of vibe to it that you just didn't see in any other games at the time. It was combining all of these art styles, gothic, Victorian, some steampunk, post-apocalyptic, like I said, all in one. And basically the whole story of Gears of War is you play as these gears, basically. And what gears are, they're like these soldiers for the coalition of gears, or coalition of government. I think it stands for coalition of gears. And basically what's happened in this universe is a lot of shit's gone down, basically. They've had wars. And in this game, what's happened is there's these monsters, or, we'll call them like clones of humans. Now, back in the day, we didn't really know what the locusts were. They're called locusts, and they're like these monsterish beings that come from under this planet that you're on. They come from underground, and they rose to the surface. And obviously, that's the story. It's kind of a unique one for the time. And the locusts in this game were really kind of like a unique enemy. And, it weren't until the later games we sort of found out what the locusts were and how they were made. But it was kind of interesting at the time because we didn't really know too much about them. We knew we were playing as these soldiers in a war against these monsters. We can call them monsters for now. And, you know, the whole point of this game is obviously you're just trying to do the right thing. You're trying to stop them. You're trying to blow them up. You're trying to get underground and plant a bomb to stop them from coming to the surface, essentially. But what really made Gears of War, in my opinion, one of the most important third-person shooters was the cover-based system. And how it worked is there were games before that had cover systems in them, like Kill Switch on the PlayStation 2, for example, some of the Ghost Recon games. And for the most part, those games had a semi-decent cover-based system, but this game is what made cover-based system a very staple in when it comes to third-person shooters. How it works is you hold down the sprint button and your character will sort of like run, crouch and run, and you take cover. And it was really smooth for the time, and it only got better with each game, obviously. But it is something that stayed in the series all throughout, even with Gears 5. You know, it stayed there the whole time, and it's what gave us the cover-based shooter genre, in my opinion. And for that reason alone, Gears of War deserves a medal. For that reason alone, because it helped revolutionize cover-based shooters, and that's something really important when it comes to third-person shooters, is being able to take cover. Before we just had games where you were running around shooting enemies, and cover shooters were like some far and none. There were games that had cover, but it weren't really that great. But Gears of War is what made the cover shooter. It took the idea of a cover-based shooter and, in my opinion, perfected it. It really did perfect the game. Now, what's great about Gears of War is when you go back and play it today, it is still a good game, don't get me wrong. People were actually surprised because this game didn't have that much in the way of content in terms of level, in terms of like any leveling up systems or weapons. This game only has a few weapons in it, but what makes this game so good is how each weapon in these games, especially in Gears of War 1, because there's 2 assault rifles, 1 shotgun, 2 pistols, and grenades, and that was it. There was no and a super powered Hammer of Dawn weapon, which is like a laser targeting system that makes these satellites shoot giant lasers from the sky. But what made and also a bow that basically shot like explosive ammo. But what made and a sniper rifle, sorry. But what made it so great is how they handled each weapon. You didn't feel like there are games like Borderlands, for example, that had hundreds and thousands of weapons. But what made Gears of War great is the fact that each weapon just felt unique for its situation. It does what it does. The shotgun was for close range, the assault rifle was for long range, the sniper rifle, of course, for sniping, and then obviously your rocket launcher or whatever was for stronger enemies. And it just made me feel like when you play this game, you might go back and think, there's not really much weapons or anything, but each weapon was handled really well. And this game, gave us the Lancer, in my opinion, which is the best assault rifle of all time. The Lancer with the chainsaw bayonet. And that alone, made this game awesome because, it is violent. It's like an Evil Dead thing with the chainsaw, But it made this game got a lot of controversy because of that violence. And I don't know if this game ever got banned anywhere. It probably did in some places. I don't know. But, it took the idea of making a violent game and really took it to the next level. And I'm not going to lie to you, the enemies in this game are kind of like bullet sponges at times. It's not realistic in any way. you can like unload a whole clip into an enemy and they still don't die. But the whole point is that they're meant to be tough people, you know. You're wearing armor and they're wearing, you know, they've got like tough skin, like these locusts are like been living underground and stuff, so they're like toughened soldiers essentially. And what makes Gears of War great, in my opinion, was this game was really targeted towards a co-op audience. And you can play this game online co-op or single player or even split screen. And I've done all three. And as a co-op game, it is just great. It's not like as much as, say, like other co-op games like A Way Out, where it's really dependent on being a co-op game. This game has the co-op sense of, if you're playing with a friend, you've got more chance of making it through on the harder difficulties. Now, I'm playing through on hardcore, all of these games on hardcore. Insane is possible, but it's very very challenging, and these games do have a fair sense of challenge to them, because it's really about using the cover. If you just run off, you're going to get shot, you're going to die. But what also made this game great was the AI in this game at the time were really well done, because the enemies don't like stay in one position. Sometimes they do, but then again, you know, no AI is perfect. But they sort of will rush you. The whole point was to like flank. So if your friend is like trying to push forward and they're pinned down by a turret, and this is where the co-op part comes in handy, is because there's parts in the game where you and your friend will have to split up, so you're going one direction, they're going another. And this might be one of the more challenging ones out of them, because there was no in these split sections there was no AI revival. The only way to revive was your friend revives you. So if you went down, you would have to wait for your friend to revive you. The bots, the teammates don't revive you in this game. That didn't happen until Gears 2, I think. And when you do those parts where you split up, it really does get challenging. It does get quite challenging because, you know, if you go down, that's it, you die back to the last checkpoint. And what made the co-op part really fun is, like, if my friend was pinned down by a turret, I would have to go to the back and try and flank them. That was the whole point of this cover-based system. And the enemies would also do the same thing. They would try to flank you. They would try and get around you, use the cover, get behind you. And there's different variants of enemies. You know, you've got your basic drones with the assault rifles. Then you've got ones with shotguns and grenades. And then you've got ones with the bows. You've got big enemies with rocket launchers. And this game did a really good job of making each enemy feel different from the last. Each enemy had their own tactics, their own sense of what they would do. Some enemies would try to stay back and snipe you. Other enemies would try to rush you. And then some enemies were really slow moving but stronger. And that's what I loved about this game, is that everything feels balanced in this game. Every enemy, every weapon, every part in this game feels like you have it works. It doesn't overcomplicate things, it just works. Now, this game is not perfect in any way. That's why they did a remake of this game called the Gears of War Ultimate Edition on the Xbox One. I believe that game came out a couple of months before Gears of War 4. And that game essentially, you know, did all of the things that a remaster, remake does with the graphics and the sound and stuff. But what it also did was add a new chapter. Now, I'm going to give away a bit of a spoiler here. In Gears of War 1, the original game, there's a part in it where you have to get to a train. And then in the original game, you do this chapter, and then the next chapter, you're already on the train. And the train is the final chapter before you fight the final boss, Ram. In the Ultimate Edition of the game, they added an extra chapter that explains how you got on that train, and, you know, and added some new parts to the game. Now, I believe that was not actually included in the original edition of the game, but it was included on the PC version of the original edition of the game, which was kind of weird. Yeah, Gears of War 1 did have a PC version. I don't think Gears of War 2, 3 and Judgment had PC versions. I think only Gears 1 and 5, maybe 4 had a PC version, and we know Gears Tactics is going to come out on PC as well. But the Ultimate Edition, in my opinion, is probably the better version of played in this one, because you get that, you know, if you care about the story, it was a big kind of like fuck you to the fans playing this game at the time, because it was kind of like, oh, you got to get to this train, and all of a sudden you're on the train. You're like, what happened in between? So I'm glad that in the Ultimate Edition they added that extra chapter to explain what happened. And this game has some pretty fun and memorable moments. There's parts in the game where you have to fight something called a berserker. Now, a berserker is like a really strong female locust, and she's basically in this game she's impervious to bullets. In the later game they made it so you could kill her with flamethrowers, but in this one the only way to kill her is to use the Hammer of Dawn, which is that targeting laser weapon, we call it, giant satellite weapon. And there's 3 parts in the game where you have to fight her. The first one, you're in this temple and you have to escape the temple to get outside, because you can only use the Hammer of Dawn when the satellites are online and outside. And you're in this temple and you have to try and escape from it, and you have to move out the way and get her to destroy the doors to do it. The second time you're in a greenhouse and you have to get her to destroy the pillars so you can create light. And the third time you fight her on the train and you have to get her to the back of the tram and either shoot the explosive barrel or press a button to get her off. And in the Ultimate Edition they also added a part in the game where you have to fight the Brumark, which is this giant, like, massive, like, monster with guns, big guns on his arms and a cannon on his back. And it is a really unique and fun experience. I recommend playing the Ultimate Edition. This game did have multiplayer back in the day, but the multiplayer was quite basic back in the day on this one. It was just your basic multiplayer versus. We'll talk more about the new multiplayers in the next coming games, of course. The Ultimate Edition, I believe, added some multiplayer modes, unlockable skins, customizable weapon skins and stuff like that. So the Ultimate version did include the multiplayer and updated it, and also added a couple of extra cutscenes. Now, I'm just going to give away a bit of a spoiler, so another spoiler alert. In the Ultimate Edition, when you beat the game, you see Queen Mira, which is the Queen of the Locust, talking. Now, this is what pisses me off. In the second game, when you see her for the first time, she's really like grey. She's all like a grey beigey colour, and she looks like a locust. In the Ultimate Edition, they used Queen Mira from Gears of War 3 skin with the human look to her and the armour on. And in the Ultimate Edition, they did that as well. And I understand why, because that was the modern version of her. But at the same time, the Ultimate Edition is still Gears of War 1, so why make her have the Gears of War 3 look when the game is based before the second game? And I know technically it's like, well, if you played the first game and you haven't played the third game, you're not going to know that. But at the same time, it was just something that sort of made me laugh a bit. But Gears of War was a classic game. This game is still great to go back and play with a friend. Definitely recommend it with a friend or brother or something, or sibling. It is definitely worth playing it with a friend, either online or offline. I would recommend playing the Ultimate Edition. It is on the Game Pass, as are all of the Gears of War games. So Microsoft, thank you very much for putting all of the Gears of War games on the Game Pass. And we probably will get Gears Tactics on the Game Pass when that drops. But that's going to be a very different game. It's going to be more like an XCOM game. Kind of interesting to see how that's all going to happen. But Gears of War, this series was dark, it was gritty, and it's fucking awesome. It's amazing. This series is great. Microsoft don't have as many exclusives as PlayStation and Sony do. But the exclusives that they do have are pretty awesome. And Gears of War is a nod to a classic game. And whether you play the original or the Ultimate version, you're going to have a good time. This game gets like an 8.5 out of 10, maybe even a 9 out of 10. There's nothing I can really complain about. There are some glitches and stuff in the original version, and when we get to Gears 2 you're going to know more about those glitches. But I had a great time playing through the Ultimate Edition of this game. But whether you play the original or the Ultimate, you're going to have a good time. It's a great game, and if you want a challenge, play it on Insane. You're going to get a challenge. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, feel free to leave a like, and of course let me know what you think about the original Gears of War game. Of course, we are now on the Gears of War marathon, so the next video will be Gears of War 2, as I just finished that last night. Bear in mind, I have beaten all of the Gears of War games previously. I'm just going back and playing through them all on hardcore with my friend, kind of like I did with Halo. So anyway, guys, of course, feel free to subscribe if you haven't already, and follow me on Instagram, Mixer, and Twitter at TheMadKaiger. I will be continuing on with Gears of War 3 tonight, my favourite of the series. And as always, guys, have a nice day, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, and bye-bye.